Good morning, everyone. Good morning across the world. From me, good morning here from Virginia. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Hello, I see a wave here. Last year we tried the first of these forums, and they seemed to be successful in that we were able to have a connection with each other that actually resulted in ongoing conversations. So we thought this year we would kick off 2015 with another community forum. We only have an hour, so we're not going to be able to go deep into many things, but I thought we could set ourselves up for the continuing conversation we want to have about the things that are on our plate, and about the state of the world, and about how and where we want to influence the outcomes of some very large issues that many in the world are grappling with, but in my view, where we have some very special expertise. That if we can organize ourselves in a way that is coherent and is clear and is persuasive, we can do some things this year that I think are quite important. So that's what this is about this morning. Let me just outline what I hope to do. First of all, I'd like to not talk the whole time. I'd like to just walk through some things for you and then open up the conversation to you. You have, prior to this morning, submitted some questions, actually 52 of them, which I got out of bed very early this morning to read and absorb. There's no way we can do and discuss 52 questions, but I have some thoughts about how we might get to them and some plans I want to share with you around that. Okay, so here's my outline. First, I want to thank you for the work that we did in 2014. I'll take a minute because I've sent you things on that, but I want to personally say something about that. I want to talk to you about what I see, the big issues. Let's talk about the big issues, and there's lots of things underneath these big issues in the year ahead for us. I want to talk about this idea of our being the internet society. I've been meditating a lot on those two words. I sometimes think about, a mother who gives a child a name, and the child decides to change the name, and the mother said, "Yeah, but I gave you that name for a reason, and it's so beautiful. So could you think about the name?" We call ourselves ISOC, but I want to talk a little bit about what it means to be the internet society and what that causes us to have to do as a society. I want to talk a couple of minutes about some of the things we have discussed at staff level and with you in various fora as to how we can strengthen this society, particularly through our chapters and our members. And then I have a couple of resolutions for 2015 that I thought I'd share. So I'm going to go through that, I hope, in maybe 20 minutes or so, and then leave the rest of the time to chat with you. Everybody good? Does anybody want a different agenda? All right. With that, since I can't see you say no, I'm going to assume it's okay. All right. First, thank you for last year. For me, last year was, just a submersion into the internet society and meeting so many of you across the world. You have been truly, and this is not hyperbole, you have been an inspiration to me and to the work that has to be done. I've had some wonderful in-depth conversations with you all, some of you who have been around from the beginning, who came with the Internet Society, were part of putting it together, were part of our board, were part of the life of this organization. Others who are new, still others who are brand new, who are just coming into the Internet Society. And from all of you, I have felt this amazing passion for the work we need to do, for ensuring that we keep this Internet well and continuing to grow. Healthy and growing. Just two words again that I keep in my head. And I think we share that passion. There are lots of pieces of this, as I learned over the year, there are lots of parts of the Internet society which has frankly caused me to think about this idea of a society and what we do when we all have some different roles in the mission we have, and I want to talk about that. But I want to thank you for really helping me see the picture. There's always more to learn, and as we go through together, I hope we learn from each other. Secondly, the staff has been incredible, and they have worked enormously hard to focus our energies in a couple of big areas to get our house straightened up and to try and work through a plan for next year. You will see, I hope I've talked about this, and I'm very serious about it. We do have a 2015 action plan, and we mean it, and that took a lot of work this year for our staff. I want to thank the ISOC board. It is an incredible board. I was talking yesterday to folks who we wanted to have understand the IANA functions. I won't go into that right now, but you know how difficult it is for folks to sort of get their arms around what are those functions, how do they work, who are these people, what are you all doing? And I was able to point to the folks on our board who have been in the forefront of ensuring that the technical part of the Internet works and have developed so many pieces of it and done the innovation. This board is extraordinary, and they have been so supportive of me this year, so I thank you there. And then I think to all of the folks on United Airlines. So it's been a long year on an airplane. Some days it's worked really well, some days it hasn't. I can see that we're going forward with that some more this year. So off around the world, I think, starting on Monday, and we'll talk more about that. So again, we put out 2014 by the numbers. I got some good feedback that we didn't do so well on our accessibility attempt. I think we fixed it a little bit for right now. We have a good conversation about what we're going to do about that website, and I'll talk a little bit more there. But I wanted you to see the numbers, and we wanted you to see them in a way that perhaps made sense to you about how they fit together and how we can go forward together to make those numbers even better with all the stories that lie behind them. Okay, so thank you. 2014 is in the books. All right, what do we have in front of us? We have some big issues. It seems that the world, as I think I've said to you before, has discovered the Internet. Everyone wants a piece of it. Every piece of the Internet touches almost every part of our commercial, social, family life at this point, at least in the areas that have the Internet. The issue about where the Internet is not is one that we can never, ever forget. And everything we do, in my mind, around ensuring that we govern ourselves well on the Internet, I do not like the word Internet governance, and I can talk a little bit about that. The way we govern ourselves on the Internet, about the Internet, around the Internet, one of our primary motivations has got to be to ensure that the Internet is everywhere. So that if we do things in this Internet governance space, that is going to stop that deployment, the evolution, and the innovation on the Internet. It's the wrong thing to do. So as I've said everywhere that I speak, don't break it. First, we don't break it. And then we have to, of course, keep innovating. And we're doing that according to principles that are deep within us, and I think have proven successful. So while the world has changed, the principles by which we think about these issues remain the same, and they remain very powerful. So this Internet governance issue, as we all know and have been involved in the various months, is very much in the forefront. A couple things, right? We've got to figure out the IGF issue. We know that there's a push to the IGF to be more result-oriented, to have more resolutions. Some people want to do this, some people don't. We need to have a conversation about this, and we need to figure out how the IGF in Brazil becomes an ongoing, evolving fora for the kinds of conversations and outputs that many of the stakeholders are calling for. Second, or A, that would be A, but B is I am amazed and very encouraged by the organic, bottom-up movement for regional and area IGF. Those are the conversations that are happening close to where the issues are bubbling up. They're likely to be more accessible to the various stakeholders who want to be in that conversation. And at least in my head, I see this as sort of a global network of networks of people happening that we should be able to connect on the internet. and we should be able to have a story that is more oriented toward the issues that arise in all of the areas of the globe. So I think this is enormously encouraging. The WSIS conversation coming up this year is going to be important in that there are many who want to think about the very origin of the governance that was put in place those many years ago. This is an important conversation for us to have. I posted something I think a week or so ago, and it was in response to the Net Mundial initiative, but I tried to suggest to you that we ought to step back a little bit and have our own conversation about where we think this whole area ought to be and what the framework is that we might be able to coalesce around. What I hear from so many is there are models out there that are working. There is no perfect model. There are models that are more effective than others. There are pieces of each of the model that we can perhaps come up with a kind of framework, that kind of pieces that have to go together for real and authentic multi-stakeholder decision making. So we've got to put some meat on the bones of that multi-stakeholder idea. And you all are close to this, and you really need to be in this conversation about that. Net Mundial. I suggested that we perhaps organize ourselves in a little more specific way around the larger questions and then some of the more specific questions as to whether and how we want to interact with that initiative. My proposal that I don't have here for the screen today is really to do a kind of survey that I think at staff are pretty good at putting together, getting it out to all of you, and do something in writing so that folks who are not as likely to speak or to write long notes on the lists might respond to it, and we can coordinate that, bring it together, and decide what our next move is. The second big issue of the year is security, and it's security writ large. And as Olaf would say to me, it's all about trust. It's all about trust. It's all about trust in the technology. It's all about trust in the way the technology is used and perhaps abused. And we need to, as guardians, as stewards of the technology and of the principles we believe in so much, be able to articulate how to restore trust and how to work through what are going to be some difficult issues. Just this week, the whole encryption issue is again on the list. It's again out in the press. If you encrypt, is that going to fragment the internet in some way because folks will not allow that? But is that better for the user? How are we going to navigate the next stage on the security of the individual, the security of the network, and then to answer the questions of nation states as to their notions of security. Some of those things are quite legitimate, and some, as we know and worry about, are not. So how are we going to respond? What is the Internet Society's positioning, and what is it we want to achieve in this area over the next months? I think it's enormously important. And then finally, and always, now I'm just talking about these big categories, which you'll see described fairly well in our action plan. How do we ensure that the internet is everywhere in the world and is accessible to everyone who wants to use it? These are economic questions, they're social questions, they are technical questions. We are very well immersed in these issues at the Internet Society. You are very immersed in these issues. We need to focus on a couple of areas and see whether we can make some big changes. I have some notions on this. You saw that Sophie went off to work with Brahima. That could be very useful. I've talked a lot about what is the underlying infrastructure that's needed here, and how do we get that how do we incent the private sector, the public sector to ensure, for instance, that you have long haul, so that we can ensure that we have the ability to move those bits across big continents, that we have the ability, therefore, to innovate more locally. We're going to talk a lot with the wireless community, who doesn't quite, I don't think yet, see themselves as part of the internet ecosystem, but is surely the next access technology that will bring the internet into the hands of the rest of the world. Hugely important. I'll go to GSMA. I want to have those conversations. I want to understand it better. You all in the internet community need to help me talk with the wireless folks around what the fundamental issues are as these things tend to converge. The IXP work we have done, I think, has been terrific. 37 this year, I think. Jane and Dawit and that team in Africa has been all over it. The team in Latin America is doing the kind of technical capacity building. In Asia, I think the push, because of where we are on the internet, there's been a lot of work around infrastructure, around wireless infrastructure. We need to have a coherent strategy with respect to what piece we can play in that internet development area. And as you know, Raul is all over this. So who are the people? Who are the point people? Sally's got the policy piece. Olaf has the technical piece. Raul really has that global engagement. You all know each other. We meet each other out on the road. Let's make sure we have a very rigorous, vigorous conversation. It doesn't have to be one way. Indeed, it should be multifaceted and multi-stakeholder on these issues. So when I think about the substantive big areas, those are the big objectives we have for this year. Underneath those objectives are initiatives that we are going to get off the ground in very specific projects that will allow us to meet those objectives. Much of that really is going to require that, and let me get to this point, we see ourselves as a full society who talk and work and collaborate with each other to meet those big goals. There's a lot of us, so getting us to focus on some big, bold ideas that we can actually move, I think, is our challenge, and that's going to require conversation to get there, and I am committed to that conversation, as I hope you are. Let me talk about the assets, the human assets that I really come to understand in the Internet Society. We have this fabulous staff. We have you, the chapters around the world, who are growing, by the way. It looks like our membership may be up between 12 and 15% this year. That's the work you are doing, bringing folks into the existing chapters, 7 new chapters this year in parts of the world where they were not. Our regional bureaus, I think, are working more closely. That's our goal. We've posted for the Middle Eastern Bureau. We mean it when we say we want to be global and we want to be everywhere. So we know about the staff and the chapters. We know about our board. When I looked around and realized the number of folks who are former board members of the ISOC community, the Internet Society community, it seems to me they have special expertise we want to call upon. We have inductees to our Hall of Fame who are just that. They're the Hall of Fame folks of the Internet, and it seems to me that we want to engage them more in the challenges in 2015. The Pastel Award winners. These are incredible, incredible people, all of which are part of us. And we need to communicate better with each other, and we need to work off of each other and use the assets we have to influence the world on the issues we care about. So how do we move forward with some of the things you've asked us to do with respect to your work in the chapters? First, I think and hope that, notwithstanding what I call our cranky gene around various issues, and in this case around the Connect, I think it's starting through your intercession and your pushing and the very good work of Fernando and others, that medium is starting to work. Not as a list, and we're trying to preserve the list that many of you like, but also as a collaborative tool. I'd like to see us use that more, and your input there is going to be important. We good? Yep. We know and respect that you are looking for resources at times to do local kinds of projects. Raul has been working quite hard with staff on trying to refashion our grant program so that we can be more focused on the local concerns of chapters. More on that to come. And we think that we need to bring the society as a whole into a forum, our forum, where we can have a global conversation about what the Internet Society is about and what it wants to do at any particular time. And the board and the staff have agreed that this year at around our meeting in Auckland, we will have the first of what I hope will be yearly, if we can make it work, a virtual meeting of the Internet Society. So inspired by the fact that the chapters have, at least for our sister agency, our sister organization, ICANN, put together fabulous hubs, etc., we see that we can make that work. And we're going to try and are going to talk to you about how to do a virtual town hall meeting of the whole of our global society. I'm not sure how we're going to pull this off, but we're already trying to figure out the technology we would need to have regional hubs, to have live streaming, as Paul has been developing, to have a virtual coming together of all of us. This is going to take some work. We need a focused agenda. We probably will need some time where the regional areas come together in a kind of workshop or roundtable to deal with particular areas, and then we come together and bring them together as a society and talk about it. From the 52 questions, for instance, that you submitted, I see a lot of places where we can fashion roundtables to talk about particular issues and then to share our insights and concerns together as a society. You're going to have a lot of questions about this. I've just given you, I call this a jump ball. I've just told you if this is going to be what we're going to work toward. It's going to take us a lot of work. We have 6 months to get there. The board is on board, and I'm hoping to get you on board as a way to say we're all in this together. I think it's enormously important. Now, that sort of development of the whole of our society is one of our huge agenda items, and both Raul, Aisha, and others are really focused on this area as we go through to bring in that multi-stakeholder character and the multi-stakeholder input that makes us who we are. The other big piece we have to do is tell our story better. We've got to be able to have a narrative that any one of us, any place in the world, can step up and say, here's what we're for, here's who we believe we are, here's why what we have to tell you is important, and here's the outcomes we need to have. We need to reach new audiences. We need to not only talk to ourselves, we need to influence others who don't have our point of view, and to do that we need an effective way to communicate in a larger way. I've introduced to you James Wood. He's on our staff. He's spent the last 2 weeks here with us in Reston. I think we're off to a good start. You're going to see a whole lot happen this year. And finally, our culture. Always our culture. Always our culture. Our culture is deeply rooted in our values. It is deeply rooted in the values of the internet itself. And I think we all believe on staff, and I think you all believe in the chapters and in the membership, that our culture should reflect the very values of the internet. Open, global, inclusive, accessible, dynamic, evolving, and innovative. All of those words we use toward around the internet have to be about the society itself. And we have to keep committing and recommitting ourselves to that, and making sure we check ourselves that we are doing those kind of inclusive kinds of things. All right, I'm going to stop talking in about 1 minute. I just want to tell you my resolutions for the year. Why not? It's a new year. We should have some resolutions. Here's mine, and you could check me on this at the end of the year. 1, I want a bias for action. If we see things, we should do things. We may do little things. We may do larger things. And in your own communities, if you see that we need to address something, we need to have a bias for doing something about it. And we need to self-organize, and we need to move. Or as I say here, we need to make a little noise. It's time. Number 2, we need to use this internet. We can communicate this way. We're getting better and better about it. That's another big of our initiatives this year. We have to use the connectivity we have. Our technology is improving all the time. I think we have to be on the leading edge of the internet wherever the internet is, and where it is not, we have to use ourselves as the seeds for creating that connectivity. And then finally, I think we have to keep it positive. There's a lot of challenges. Our personality should be a can-do personality. It should be a positive personality. It should be showing the way forward. We do have a cranky gene. I do too, by the way, where we get annoyed because, for goodness sakes, can't you see that we have the right way? We're going to have to put that aside, I think. We're going to influence people by showing the way in a positive way. And so resolution 3 for me is be not cranky, be positive. And when I'm being cranky, somebody say, hey, remember you said? No. It's about positive. Every day, be positive. So with that, I'm going to stop speaking and turn the mic over to you. I'm not going to have the answers to all of your questions because they're always good and they're always complex, but we can have a conversation. And I would take any comments, by the way, on any of the plans that at least are in my head that you want to talk about, and then any other things you want to suggest. Okay? So where shall I go from here, Paul?
Todd is going to help us coordinate the questions, so just one moment.
Okay. I invite and want to see a face, too, if that's possible.
Hi, Kathy. You've got a couple of questions here.
Who is that, please?
That was Todd. You have a couple of questions in front of you there.
I have a question. So a couple of issues that go toward the technology area. Again, I'm going to give this quick kinds of answers, but there's a lot of work going on here. So question, what are the concrete projects in cybersecurity that ISOC is going to run for itself or among the chapters? Here, I think Olaf and his team, together with our regional folks and our policy folks, are working through where is the right place for us to sort of start and how to get the conversation going. My thinking, and I know Olaf's thinking, is that he needs to start with this idea of a collaborative security, about how we together have to make the technology more secure and for us to increase the trust between and among us. There are a number of projects going within the technology group that are just starting up. That conversation, I think, will be had. And if I had Olaf here right now, I think he's on, I would invite him to actually perhaps give this a little bit more life. Olaf, are you there by any chance? He's on WebEx. Okay. So,
Yes, I'm on WebEx.
ah, there he is. I can hear
Here
you.
I am. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, the approach that we're taking here is that one of the things that I think is important is that whenever we talk about cybersecurity, we walk away from that term and really understand what the issue is. I think it's very important for us to understand that the internet consists out of different players at different layers, each with their own responsibility towards the security on the internet and security features on the internet. Dissecting that and understanding what our own role of that is an important part. We want to lead by example, for instance, by pushing technologies that make the security on the internet layer more pervasive, so to speak. We will continue to push for DNSSEC deployment. We have launched an effort called Manner. We have launched an effort called Manners to get people to sign on a routing manifesto specifically targeted towards the community of operators. So putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak, by convening people that can actually make a difference, but also trying to develop a material around security issues that can help others to promote the message. I'll leave it with that.
So, Olaf, there's also a question about open source hardware and what role that has in the internet.
Sorry, I didn't get that question.
There's a question around open source hardware and how we ought to think about that as a way forward on the internet.
I'm a big supporter of open source myself. I must say I don't know if we, as an internet society, have a specific open source position. That said, going back to the security issue, we are supporting, for instance, through in several means, an effort called CryptTag, which is designing open source hardware that will enable people to store their private keys. So in that context, that is a very concrete part where we actually provide support to a project that is centered around open designed hardware. Hope that answers your question.
Good. Good. You know, these are conversations that will go on, but thank you so much, Olaf. So I have a question with regard to how ISOC will support volunteers who wish to support their communities to grow an internet usage, and how to incent active volunteers. Look, I think this is the work of the chapters. I think bringing those local folks in who are excited about this very issue is what we need to do in our chapters. I think our regional bureaus are there to assist. We have folks who are, as you know, Ted and Joyce and others who are, their job is to support you, to support the community. And I do think that if we get a grant program properly sized, and by that I'm really thinking small grants, that those can be used by your community members for that very kind of thing. Others? Other questions?
Hello?
Yes?
Hello? Hello?
I can hear you.
Yeah, this is Michael. I'm calling from Ghana.
Hello.
Uh, Hello. I have two questions on cybersecurity. Hello, can you hear me?
I can just
Two,
barely.
two questions on cybersecurity, you said.
Michael, please go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, one, I have two questions. One, what group or organization is the biggest cyber threat today? And two, how can we build a safer cyber world? Thank you.
Let me try to understand the question better. What group? Can somebody help me?
I didn't hear.
What group or organization is the biggest cyber threat today?
Is the biggest cyber threat today?
Yes, what group or organization? And two, how can we build a safer cyber world?
Yes. Um, I don't know that I can answer what group is the biggest a cyber threat. I think there are cyber threats around the world, and I think they have different flavors, and I think they have both different origins and different responses that are required. I think this area is one that's right for the kind of roundtable that I'm suggesting.
How do you reduce the volume?
Does somebody else want to speak?
Muting WebEx, so I think there's some people on WebEx that aren't muted.
Okay. So folks who are on WebEx who would like to speak need to let us know that, and otherwise try and keep it mute. Look, I think this is an area that we've got to spend some time on, and we've got to understand what we even mean by this word cybersecurity, and we need to understand and delineate what we believe the threats are. So again, I think this is exactly the kind of roundtable that I could see us having in conjunction with a meeting later this year in July. I have another question here around President Obama's declaration about broadband services. World leaders supporting this kind of position, and what's our agenda? Our agenda has always been around the enabling environment. We've been on this for as long as the Internet Society has been busy around ensuring that there's sufficient bandwidth being built so that the Internet has the underlying facilities needed to reach everyone. I think we've seen world leaders talk about broadband, or at least the economic leaders and the folks who do communication kind of policy have been talking about broadband for the last number of years. The issue now is, can we get it everywhere? And that is both an economic, social, and political issue. So it's encouraging when we see world leaders talk about it with some force. On your basis for action, we stated in the Internet Society Regional Chapter Leader Workshop starting today that it would be good to create a 1-minute video of my story. I love this. I love this. If we could start to have video experiences that others can see and that you can share, and folks can understand how people around the world are actually taking action, I think you'll inspire each other to no end. I know when I talk to you all, each and every one of you, I come away always thinking I got to get moving faster because of the work you're doing out there. So that you share those stories with each other, I think is all to the good. I don't know the answer, to David, to your question. Does ISOC have a strategy or position regarding Bitcoin and related blockchain 2.0 technologies? I think there's conversations amongst and between us around this. I don't know that we have a ISOC position. Again, I think, I don't know that we should have an ISOC position. I'm glad that people are thinking about it. But I think that's probably not right now in my focused what we have to get done this year. So there's no more questions in the queue right now. So I think I had some others in front of me. One I had was about what's happening with respect to the IANA discussion. I think many of you are involved in that and probably have a pretty good handle. I think the protocol parameter, the IETF community has moved forward with a pretty coherent proposal. The numbers folks are sort of right behind them, and I think the names folks are still having some work to do. From what I saw yesterday, looks like that is an ongoing conversation that seems to me positive, but is a little bit more complex and perhaps in needing some time. I think the question has come up as to whether and how much we can get done this year by the September date that we've talked a lot about. I think we have to work toward that date and to get as much as we can get done. I think this is an opportunity. I think we need to work hard on this. We want the IANA functions to be globalized. We need to define what we mean by that and how that works. And I think we have the opportunity to do that right now, and we ought to keep working very hard. I see some questions about the UN and whether and how what our reactions are to discussions regarding the establishment of a centralized body similar to the UN governing of the Internet. I think the Internet Society and you all have been pretty clear about our thinking about centralized global bodies for the regulation or the governing of the Internet. We believe it's a bottom-up process, and that, as I said in the beginning, we need to think about the models that will allow the multi-stakeholder decision-making model to be real in any particular place. And high on my list this year is taking that up and having a presentation of what's out there now, and a discussion of how we can make that better and how those models can be adopted and adapted across the world. Anybody else want to come on screen? So I'm not going to extend this too long. I see Richard Hill would like to come on and ask a question, and Glenn is asking me about the IEEE. I know that we have been present in the IEEE conferences, so...
Hi, this is Richard. Okay, can I go ahead?
Yes, please, Richard.
Hi, thank you very much for that. Coming back to your first statement about the Internet, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. Actually, as you know, I agree with the set of challenges that Bob Hinden recently outlined. So it may not be broken, but there are certain challenges, and we have to face those. And you have. I'm not saying you haven't, but I just want to put that in context. All is not well, in my opinion. And in particular, since you mentioned encryption, you were appropriately diplomatic. But I'm not sure what you were referring to, but I just saw that a few days ago, the UK Prime Minister, David Cameron, basically said, well, we shouldn't encrypt anything, or you should be able to defeat all sorts of encryption. As we know, that is simply not going to work. HTTPS is an integral part of the Internet. You need encryption for Bitcoin and all sorts of other things. So I think that the issues, as you said, are actually going to get more pressing and bigger, and there's a fair amount of misinformation out there. So I agree with you. We need to do a better job of explaining what's really going on.
Thanks, Richard. Just to clarify, I don't think I said if it's not broke, don't fix it. I said as we look to those challenges, don't break it in the solutions that we come up with. It's a nuanced difference, but it's, in my mind, an important one. I think there are, as my friend Leslie Daigle would call them, invariants that make the Internet what it is. And as we seek to meet the challenges, we need to be sure that we don't make the Internet something that is a very, very different medium. So that was my point. I think there are real challenges right now, and I think we have to address them. So I think we should do a wrap. I, again, want to thank you all for, oh, Sally, sorry. Sally wants to jump in on the IEEE. You there, Sally? We are decentralized ourselves today. We're all around. Do you see her, Paul?
No.
I'm going to allow, I think I'm going to let that go then for the moment and see if I can just wrap up. I again want to thank you. We are decentralized ourselves today. We're all around. There you are, Sally.
I think I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to stay on that point. I'm not sure the full driver of it, but we do work quite a bit with the IEEE in various ways. On the technical front, and I'm sure my other colleagues could speak more about that, but Raul has pointed out with IEEE in thinking about e-learning courses where we had mutual areas of interest. Of course, you will recall some years ago there was an effort by the various Internet standards organizations to come together around OpenStand and the Open Standards principles. And I think it's good to hear from you that they're reaching out at the chapter level. I think there's a lot more that we can do together with the IEEE. We share many things in common, and I think many of us would be interested in hearing more from those of you about that. So I just wanted to speak up on that because I think that is an opportunity there.
Good. Thank you, Sally. I don't want to prematurely.
Sorry, can I have the floor?
I think there's another speaker who would like to speak, Paul.
Sorry, can I have the floor?
Oh, no, Abuni.
We can barely hear you, speaker. We can barely hear you.
I've got one.
There we go. Jolly.
Okay, I just wanted to ask a bit more clarification on where we stand with NMI, the new NetMinded initiative, because we had the joint.
Okay. So
We had,
here.
we had the joint statement where we all were on the same page, and then it seemed like ICANN went off and continued and ignored that statement. They didn't bring it back to the community, they just carried on. So where do we stand on that?
Yeah, so here's my understanding of where we stand. As you know, we sat together to try and sort through where we had agreement and where we were still in disagreement, or where we were not in agreement, to say it differently. And in the statement that came out of the meeting on the 17th, you saw that we specifically said that the IETF, the IAB, and the Internet Society were of the view that there should be first a scoping of what the initiative was to do, a charter, before the organization itself was put together, sort of following, form follows function. There was not an agreement with that position amongst some in the room, and so we left it as a disagreement. What we then did agree on, however, was that there should be a charter, and that the charter should be part, or at least produced by, a consultation with the community, and that should move forward. We at the Internet Society we are not part of that initiative at this part, although we are in dialogue with folks who I think who are in goodwill moving forward, trying to sort it out. My understanding is that this week the members are talking about how to start that consultation. That is as much as I know at this point. Some others on the call may know differently. But that's my understanding of where it sits. as to us, as I said earlier in this conversation, I think it's an opportunity for us to have the larger conversation about what we want to think about with respect to the Net Mundial principles and how they go forward, with the IGF and how it ought to operate, and how just generally we ought to be, as the Internet Society, talking about models for Internet governance and for responding to some of the issues that I think were at the core of the initiative's beginnings. It's the best I can answer you because that's as much as I know. So I hope that's okay, Jolly.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Hello, I see someone who wants to speak here.
Yes, my name is Adebumi Akinban, speaking from Nigeria. I go ahead. Okay. I want to speak from the angle concerning the meetings, quarterly meetings, regional meetings. I think it's actually very good to be a welcome idea. Fortunately, live stream is easy to access, and I believe African countries can even easily access them as they speak. I think more effort to be put, and that by first creating a kit that would allow for moderation and ensure that there is a global supervision somewhere who can always come in the regional and, if possible, at chapter level. That said, the issue of security, I think we should look more at it concerning the fact that we are a society that should be talking more about the internet. We should start a group or a forum group, a sectional group on different topics. Transition that is going on. We should have a group that should be talking about security and differentiating the term, like we said, in social. The word cybersecurity should be well defined. We should start talking about it now. We shouldn't wait until something drastic happens before we sit down and say.
I think that's right.
I think having such meetings like this on platform, on ISOC platform, will be encouraging. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much
Hello,
for that.
can I go ahead?
Raul, are you there? Raul? I think I saw Raul come on. There he is. Raul says we are in fact setting up those supporting mechanisms right now. I think he's in the chat. Are you seeing him there? And I think Dawit, actually, who heads our regional bureau there, is on the same page as you. So I hope you all can connect there. I think there's a lot going on. Africa's a very big continent. I think we need to do more, and I think we need your chapter help as well. So the self-organizing part of this is important, and then I think you will see that we're pushing some of the same ideas that you just put on the table. So thank you for that. Thank you.
I'm here, Kathy, but
there's Raul. Okay.
The audio was not very good, so I missed exactly what was the point.
Yes, yes. I think it's the idea of having regular discussions and regular roundtables to talk about things before they become so serious that they're a big problem. I hope that's right. I see a nod. So I think it's this sort of how do we get ahead of the issues we know are on the table as the development process goes forward. Fair?
This is one of our main concerns for 2015. As most of our work plan for 2015 go around the idea of mobilizing more and better our ISOC community. And some of the things that have been mentioned by Kathy are some of the tools that we will implement: more distributed meetings, more virtual forums, and one of our ideas is to engage more and to empower more the chapters in the process. And so I think that what you are saying go exactly in the direction of what we expect to do in 2015 and beyond that.
Good. All right, now I will call an end and say thank you very much to everyone, and ask you to please give us some feedback as to whether these kinds of opportunities to talk to each other are helpful, what else we ought to be doing. But for my bias to action, then what do we do with the things that we think are important, and how do we stay focused? I'm very clear that if we want to get anything done, we can't do everything. So we have to figure out what it is we're going to move on. We have a plan for the year. Input it as much as you like. Think about this July meeting that I'd like to convene, this global convening of the whole of us, how we might run it. Give me some good conversations around this. I will see folks around the world, probably in Singapore next. I'm expecting a lot of you, or many of you may be there. Then after that, we tend to be able to see each other in places. Let's have conversations. Meanwhile, we will be putting out some proposals and trying to organize ourselves so that we can coherently say, we are the Internet Society. Here's what we believe. Here's what we would like to see happen as the world changes, as the Internet evolves. Here's the way we would like to see it so that it is the Internet for everyone. So with that, thank you so much. Happy New Year. And I will see you along the trail or on the Internet.